The rain had been falling for hours, a steady, insistent drumming that had lulled Elara into a liminal state somewhere between waking and dreaming during the long drive. Now, as the car crunched on the gravel drive, the sound changed, a softer, more intimate whisper against the ancient stones of Ashworth Place. The grand old house emerged from the twilight, a silhouette of gables and turrets against a bruised indigo sky, its windows glowing with a warm, inviting amber. Elara felt a familiar flutter of anticipation, a sensation she usually reserved for the unveiling of a particularly exquisite textile. But this was different. This was a retreat, a surrender to something other than the demands of her loom and dye baths. Her work, intricate and demanding, had consumed her for months. This weekend was meant to be an antidote. Silence, solitude, perhaps a touch of indulgent luxury. A young man, impeccable in a charcoal suit, appeared under the ornate portico, an umbrella blooming open like a dark flower. He smiled, a polite practice gesture, and opened her door. "Welcome to Ashworth Place, Miss Vance. We've been expecting you." The air that greeted her was thick with the scent of old wood, beeswax polish, and a faint, sweet hint of jasmine. It was an aroma that promised comfort and history. Inside, the foyer was a study in subdued opulence. A grand staircase, dark polished oak, swept upwards, its banister curving like a dancer's arm. Heavy velvet drapes, the color of claret wine, framed tall windows that now streamed with rain. A roaring fire crackled in a massive stone hearth, casting dancing shadows across the room and painting the polished surfaces with streaks of gold. "May I take your coat, Miss Vance?" the young man asked, his voice soft, almost deferential. Elara shed her cashmere wrap, feeling the cool air against her skin for a moment before the warmth of the fire embraced her. She smoothed down the silk of her dress, a deep forest green that shimmered subtly in the low light. "Thank you. It's beautiful here." "Indeed," he replied, a hint of genuine appreciation in his tone. "If you'd care to follow me, your room is prepared." He led her through a labyrinth of hushed corridors past walls adorned with faded tapestries and portraits whose eyes seemed to follow her. The silence was profound, broken only by the distant murmur of the rain and the soft padding of their footsteps on thick Persian rugs. It felt like stepping into another era, where time moved at a more graceful, unhurried pace. Her room was on the first floor, overlooking what she imagined, even in the gloom, was a magnificent garden. The door swung open to reveal a sanctuary. The bed, a four-poster, was draped with shears and piled high with pillows. A chaise lounge, upholstered in a deep sapphire velvet, nestled by another roaring fireplace. The walls were paneled in a warm, honey-toned wood, and a large bay window offered a glimpse of weeping trees and glistening leaves. "Dinner is served between 7 and 9 in the main dining room, Miss Vance," the attendant informed her, placing her small overnight bag on a luggage rack. "And if you require anything at all, please don't hesitate to use the intercom." "Thank you," Elara said, already half lost in the room's embrace. She walked to the window, pressing her palm against the cool glass. The garden was indeed beautiful, a wild, untamed expanse softened by the rain. A shiver, not of cold, but of delicious anticipation, traced its way down her spine. This was exactly what she needed. After a long, hot bath, soaking in water scented with lavender and cedar, Elara felt a profound sense of peace settle over her. She chose a dress of midnight blue silk, its fabric falling like liquid over her curves, simple yet elegant. She fastened a single strand of pearls around her neck and ran a brush through her dark, wavy hair, letting it fall loose around her shoulders. Her reflection in the antique mirror showed eyes that held a new, quiet spark. When she descended the grand staircase again, the house felt different. The fire in the foyer still glowed, but now soft lamplight illuminated various nooks and crannies, revealing carved details and delicate porcelain. The scent of roasted herbs and rich sauces drifted from the dining room, beckoning her. The dining room was intimate, a long, elegant space with only a handful of tables, each impeccably set with crisp, white linen and gleaming silver. Soft jazz played from unseen speakers, a low, melodic hum. There were only two other couples dining, their voices hushed, almost reverent. Ilara was led to a table by the window, offering a view of the still raining garden, now lit by subtle uplights that made the wet foliage gleam. She ordered a glass of a crisp Sauvignon Blanc and perused the menu, her senses delighting in the subtle symphony of flavors described. As she sipped her wine, allowing the chilled liquid to slide down her throat, she found her gaze drifting around the room. It was then that she saw him. He was seated at the far end of the room, alone, by a fireplace that mirrored the one in the foyer. He was leaning back, one arm casually draped over the empty chair beside him, a glass of amber liquid, perhaps whiskey, held loosely in his other hand. His profile was sharp, aristocratic, framed by dark, slightly long hair that brushed the collar of his impeccably tailored charcoal suit. There was an air about him, a stillness that was both powerful and intriguing. As if sensing her gaze, he slowly turned his head. Ilara felt an electric jolt, a sudden, unexpected current that tightened her breath. His eyes, even from across the room, seemed to pierce through the soft light, a startling shade of hazel flecked with gold. They were ancient eyes, she thought, holding depths of experience and perhaps a touch of melancholy. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips, a slow, knowing curve that sent a warmth spreading through her chest. She quickly averted her gaze, feeling a blush creep up her neck. It had been years since a man's look had affected her so profoundly, so instantly. She took another gulp of wine, trying to compose herself, her heart thrumming a rhythm she hadn't felt in a long time. When she next dared to look, he was no longer at his table. A flicker of disappointment, sharp and surprising, pricked her. Then a shadow fell over her table. "Good evening," a voice said, low and resonant, like the deep thrum of a cello. It was him. Ilara looked up, her eyes meeting his directly this time. Up close, the gold flecks in his hazel eyes were even more pronounced, reflecting the candlelight. There was a faint scar, almost imperceptible, that feathered across his left eyebrow, adding a touch of ruggedness to his refined features. He stood tall, radiating an effortless authority that was both intimidating and utterly captivating. "Good evening," she managed, her voice a little breathy. "I hope you'll forgive my intrusion," he said, his smile deepening, revealing a hint of white teeth. "But I couldn't help but notice you dining alone. And this house can feel rather expansive on a rainy night." He gestured vaguely to the empty chair opposite her. "Would you mind if I joined you?" Her mind raced. "Yes, I would mind. I came here for solitude." But the words caught in her throat, replaced by a different, more insistent urge. The way he looked at her, a frank admiration that wasn't crude but deeply appreciative, was disarming. There was a challenge in his eyes, a silent question she suddenly wanted to answer. "Not at all," she said, surprising herself with the ease of her reply. "Please." He pulled out the chair with a graceful movement, settling into it with an air of comfortable command. The subtle scent of his cologne reached her then, something woody and complex, with a hint of something clean, like sea air. It was intoxicating. "Julian Thorne," he offered, extending a hand across the table. His fingers were long and strong, his grip firm but gentle. The warmth of his skin lingered against hers for a moment too long, sending another shiver down her arm. "Ilara Vance," she replied, her voice steady now, though her pulse still quickened. "Ilara," he repeated, tasting the name on his tongue. A beautiful name, like a melody. His gaze held hers, unwavering. "Are you enjoying Ashworth Place so far?" "Very much," she said, regaining her composure. "It's exactly what I needed. A respite from everything." He nodded, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "I know the feeling. The world outside can be quite insistent, can't it?" He paused, then leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial murmur. "So, what exactly is everything for Ilara Vance?" She found herself smiling, a genuine, unforced smile. "I'm a textile designer. My days are usually spent immersed in threads, dyes, and the intricate dance of the loom. It's rewarding, but demanding." "Ah, a creator," he mused, his eyes lighting up with interest. That explains the discerning eye. I imagine you appreciate the textures and craftsmanship of this old place. He gestured around the dining room, his gaze sweeping over the velvet curtains, the polished wood, the delicate porcelain on the tables, and perhaps even the silk you're wearing, which, I must say, is rather magnificent. His compliment was delivered with such sincerity, devoid of any lechery, that Alara felt herself relax further. You have an eye for it too, Mr. Thorne. He chuckled, a low, rich sound. Please, Julian. And yes, I suppose I do. I have a particular appreciation for beauty in all its forms, especially those that whisper of artistry and passion. He paused, his gaze lingering on her face. Velvet, for instance. Do you work with velvet, Alara? The word, spoken in his deep voice, felt like a caress. Occasionally. It's a challenging fabric, but incredibly rewarding. It has such depth, such a tactile quality. It holds light in a way no other fabric does. Indeed, Julian said, his eyes now seeming to hold that very depth. It can be both luxurious and mysterious, can't it? Soft to the touch, yet with an underlying strength in its weave. Like certain people. His gaze was intense, and Alara felt a blush rise again, knowing he wasn't just talking about fabric anymore. Their dinner arrived, a perfectly seared duck breast with cherry reduction for Alara, and a slow-cooked lamb shank for Julian. The conversation flowed effortlessly, moving from art and history to travel and philosophy. Julian was incredibly well-read, with a sharp wit and a captivating way of articulating his thoughts. He asked questions that invited more than superficial answers, delving into her passions, her inspirations, her quiet dreams. Alara found herself revealing more than she intended, drawn out by his genuine interest and the comfortable intimacy that had quickly settled between them. She spoke of the thrill of creating a new pattern, the satisfaction of seeing raw threads transform into something beautiful, the moments of frustration and triumph. He listened intently, his eyes never leaving hers, as if every word she uttered was a precious secret. So, you weave stories into fabric, Julian summarized, leaning back as the waiter cleared their plates. A rather magical profession, Alara. And what about you, Julian? She asked, eager to turn the spotlight. You spoke of having an appreciation for beauty. What is your profession, if you don't mind my asking? A slight smile played on his lips, a hint of amusement in his eyes. I dabble, I acquire. Sometimes I advise. You could say I curate. I help bring beautiful things into the world, or preserve them. Properties, art, sometimes even experiences. His answer was vague, yet intriguing, hinting at a life of quiet influence and refined taste. He seemed to own a piece of the world, or at least know how to navigate its most exquisite corners. Experiences? Alara prompted, intrigued. Yes, he said, his gaze dropping to her lips for a fleeting moment before returning to her eyes. Moments that resonate, that linger, like this one. The air between them thickened, charged with an unspoken understanding. The jazz music seemed to swell, then fade, leaving only the soft crackle of the fireplace and the steady rhythm of the rain outside. Alara felt a magnetic pull towards him, a desire to lean closer, to absorb more of his presence, his scent, his captivating voice. When they finished their desserts, a delicate lavender panna cotta for her, a rich dark chocolate torte for him, Julian suggested they move to the drawing room for a digestive. There's a brandy that might interest you, he said, his eyes sparkling. A rather rare vintage. Perfect for a night like this. Alara agreed without hesitation. The thought of ending the evening now felt unbearable. The drawing room was even more inviting, a symphony of rich textures and muted colors. Deep green leather armchairs, a grand piano standing silently in one corner, and shelves filled with leather-bound books. Another roaring fire cast a warm glow, and the large windows offered a view of the garden, now a glimmering, mysterious landscape under the soft outdoor lights. They settled into 2 plush armchairs by the fire. Julian ordered their drinks. The brandy for himself, and a delicate herbal tea for Ilara, remembering her earlier mention of needing to unwind. He served her himself, pouring the steaming liquid from an antique silver pot into a delicate china cup, his long fingers surprisingly deft. "To beautiful things," he toasted, raising his brandy glass. "To lingering moments," Ilara replied, clinking her teacup gently against his glass. The conversation continued, but it was softer now, punctuated by comfortable silences. Ilara found herself studying him, noticing the way the firelight caught the silver threads at his temples, the subtle tension in his jawline when he was lost in thought, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. He was a man who exuded quiet strength and a profound elegance. She felt a lightness in her chest, a sense of ease she hadn't anticipated. It was more than just attraction. It was a feeling of being seen, truly seen, by someone who understood the nuances of her soul. And she felt instinctively that she was seeing a glimpse of his as well, beyond the polished exterior. At one point, the rain outside intensified, a sudden deluge that hammered against the windows. Ilara shivered, a small, involuntary movement. "Are you cold?" Julian asked immediately, his voice filled with concern. Without waiting for a reply, he rose from his chair and walked to a nearby settee, draped with a heavy throw. It was made of the finest cashmere, the color of charcoal smoke. He picked it up and returned to her, unfolding it with a gentle flourish. "Here," he said, his hands brushing her shoulders as he settled the impossibly soft fabric around her. His touch lingered, a warm electric current that passed through the silk of her dress. For a moment his fingers rested on the bare skin of her neck, sending a delicious tremor through her. He was so close she could feel the heat radiating from his body, smell the intoxicating blend of his cologne and the faint earthy scent of the rain he must have carried in. Her breath hitched. She could feel the subtle movement of his chest as he breathed, the warmth of his presence enveloping her. Their eyes met, and in that moment, the world outside the drawing room ceased to exist. His gaze was molten gold, searching, questioning, promising. "Better?" he murmured, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through her. Ilara could only nod, a silent assent. The cashmere was indeed exquisitely soft, but it was his proximity, the lingering touch of his hands that truly warmed her. She felt a powerful urge to lean into his touch, to press her cheek against his hand, to close the small distance between them. He slowly withdrew his hands, though his eyes remained locked with hers. The air crackled between them, thick with unspoken desires. He then returned to his chair, but the space between them felt charged, irrevocably altered. They sat for a while longer, the conversation sparse now, replaced by a comfortable, sensual silence. Ilara felt a deep ache within her, a longing that had been dormant for too long, now awakened by this man, by this place, by the velvet touch of the night. Finally, the late hour became undeniable. The other couples had long since retired, and the house had settled into its deep, resonant quiet. "It's been a truly delightful evening, Ilara," Julian said, his voice softer now, tinged with a hint of reluctance. "Thank you for sharing it with me." "The pleasure was all mine, Julian," she replied, her voice a little husky. She didn't want it to end. He stood, and she rose with him, the cashmere throw slipping from her shoulders to pool on the armchair. He reached out, and, with a tender slowness, picked up a stray strand of her dark hair that had fallen across her collarbone. His thumb brushed lightly against her skin, sending a jolt through her. "Velvet," he whispered, his eyes dark with an emotion she couldn't quite decipher, but which mirrored the yearning in her own heart. "Soft and deep, just as I imagined." He let the strand of hair fall, his fingers lingering near her neck for another beat, before he stepped back, creating a small, agonizing distance between them. "Allow me to walk you to your room," he offered, his gaze still intensely fixed on hers. They walked in silence through the hushed corridors, the only sound the soft echo of their footsteps. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and the subtle, intoxicating trace of his cologne. Ilara's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the quiet of the house. Every nerve ending was alive, humming with awareness of his presence beside her. When they reached her door, he stopped. She turned to face him, her breath catching in her throat. His eyes, in the dim hallway light, were dark pools, fathomless and inviting. He reached out, his hand gently finding her arm, his thumb tracing a slow, deliberate path over the delicate skin of her inner wrist. "Good night, Alara," he said, his voice barely a whisper, yet it resonated deep within her. "Good night, Julian," she managed, her voice equally soft, almost lost. She yearned for him to lean in, to close the remaining space, to taste the promise she saw in his eyes. The tension between them was palpable, a fragile, exquisite thing. His gaze dropped to her lips, lingered there for a long, agonizing moment, then lifted back to her eyes. A silent question, a powerful invitation, hung in the air. He leaned in, just a fraction, and Alara found herself rising on the tips of her toes, her eyes fluttering shut in anticipation. But then, he stopped. He simply held her gaze, a profound, lingering look that spoke volumes. The touch on her wrist tightened, just for a moment. A silent plea, a burning question. Then, with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of the night, he released her. His hand slid away, leaving her skin tingling, cold in its absence. He stepped back, a final lingering look, before turning and disappearing into the shadows of the corridor. Alara stood there for a long moment, her hands still tingling, her heart thumping. The silence of the house pressed in around her. She slowly reached out, her fingers finding the cold brass of her doorknob. She stepped inside, the luxurious room now feeling both like a sanctuary and a cage. She leaned against the closed door, her eyes squeezed shut, the image of his face burned behind her eyelids. The scent of his cologne still clung to her, a phantom presence. She could still feel the phantom brush of his fingers, the lingering warmth where his hand had rested. "A velvet dossier." A word echoed in her mind, now inextricably linked with him. Soft, deep, mysterious, and utterly captivating. And she knew, with a certainty that thrilled and terrified her, that this was only the beginning. The night had just begun to unfold its true textures. She blinked, her eyes open, the darkness of her room a soft blanket around her. The silence was profound, broken only by the distant hum of the city, a counterpoint to the thrumming in her veins. She lay utterly still, listening to the echoes of her own heartbeat, feeling the ghostly caress of his presence. His scent, that intoxicating blend of spice and woods, and something uniquely him, still lingered. It wasn't just in the air, it felt imprinted on her skin, a subtle brand. Velvet. A word resonated, a deep, rich chord. It wasn't merely the texture of his jacket, though that had been her first association. It was the texture of his voice, low and resonant. The texture of his gaze, so dark and deep, like light absorbed into an infinite void. The texture of his touch, light yet profoundly impactful, like the brush of velvet against sensitive skin, soft, yielding, yet leaving an unforgettable impression. She traced the line of her jaw with her fingertips, remembering the light pressure of his thumb. A shiver, not of cold, but of exquisite anticipation, danced down her spine. The encounter had been brief, a mere whisper in the grand tapestry of the evening, yet it had ignited something primal within her, a hunger she hadn't known she possessed, a longing she couldn't name. She rose from the chaise lounge, her movements fluid and unhurried. The silk of her robe whispered against her skin as she walked to the window. The city stretched out below, a glittering expanse of lights, a galaxy of human lives unfolding. But her world had narrowed to a single point, a single man, a single unanswerable question. Who was he? And what did he want? More importantly, what did AI Shane want from him? The answer, startling in its clarity, was everything. A soft, almost imperceptible sound broke the stillness of her thoughts. A faint click, then the hushed whisper of a door closing. Her breath hitched. She hadn't heard a knock. Had she? Or had she been so lost in her reverie that she'd missed it? She turned slowly, her heart now a frantic drum against her ribs. The doorway to her private sitting room, which led to the main suite and beyond, was now subtly ajar. A sliver of light, warm and inviting, spilled into her darkened sanctuary. And then, a shadow lengthened, tall and impossibly elegant, before resolving into the familiar, unforgettable silhouette. He stood there, framed by the soft glow, a quiet sentinel. His dark jacket was gone, replaced by a perfectly tailored silk shirt, unbuttoned at the collar, revealing just a hint of the strong column of his throat. His sleeves were rolled up once, revealing forearms corded with subtle strength, the taut skin a stark contrast to the luxurious fabric. His eyes, even from this distance, held hers, a silent question, a profound understanding. I thought you had left," she managed, her voice a breathy whisper. A slow smile, subtle and deeply sensual, touched his lips. It wasn't a wide, boisterous smile, but a private, intimate one, as if sharing a secret only with her. "Did you truly believe I would simply disappear into the night after such a beginning?" His voice was that familiar velvet, a low murmur that seemed to stroke her senses. "The night, as you yourself observed, has only just begun to unfold its true textures." He pushed the door wider, revealing the suite beyond. It was even more opulent than her private room, a grand sitting area with plush velvet sofas. A small ironic shiver went through her. Dark wood paneling and a roaring fire in a magnificent stone hearth. The air was rich with the scent of burning logs, aged leather, and something else, something warm and inviting, like fine brandy. "I confess," he continued, stepping fully into her view, "I found myself unable to leave. Not yet. Not when there was so much left unsaid. And perhaps so much left to discover." He gestured vaguely to the grand suite, then back to her. "I took the liberty of lighting the fire. It felt appropriate for a night such as this." He moved with an innate grace, a predator's silent confidence, yet there was no menace, only an intoxicating allure. He stopped a few feet from her, close enough that his presence was an almost physical force, yet far enough to maintain a delicate tension. The firelight danced in his dark eyes, turning them to liquid pools of mystery. "You're not surprised?" he observed, a hint of amusement in his tone, as if he could read the complex tapestry of her thoughts. She shook her head, a small, involuntary movement. "No. I felt it, that you wouldn't." Her honesty was disarming, even to herself. With him, there seemed to be no room for pretense. "Good," he said simply, his gaze dropping to her lips for a fleeting moment, then returning to her eyes. "Because I have been thinking of nothing else since I first saw you." The words hung in the air, potent and heavy with unspoken meaning. They were not a casual compliment, but a declaration, delivered with an intensity that made her entire being hum. She felt herself flush, a warmth spreading from her chest to her cheeks, a delicious heat that had nothing to do with the fire. "And you," she admitted, her voice barely audible. The truth felt liberating, a dam breaking. He smiled again, a deeper, more profound smile this time, as if her confession was precisely what he had been waiting for. He extended a hand, palm up, a silent invitation. "Come, let the night truly begin." She didn't hesitate. Her hand slid into his, and the contact was electric. His skin was warm, firm, and the subtle calluses on his palm spoke of strength and experience. His fingers closed around hers, a gentle but possessive clasp that sent a jolt straight to her core. It wasn't just skin touching skin, it was two souls recognizing a profound connection. He led her out of the darkened room and into the warmth of the main suite. The fire cast flickering shadows on the walls, painting the room in hues of amber and gold. The air was softer here, imbued with the rich aroma of the burning cedar and the faint, sweet scent of a blooming night jasmine from a hidden vase. He guided her to one of the plush velvet sofas, its deep crimson color a sumptuous invitation. They sat not too close, but close enough that their knees almost brushed. The firelight played across his features, highlighting the sharp planes of his cheekbones, the strong line of his jaw, the subtle curve of his lips. She found herself mesmerized, unable to tear her gaze away. "Tell me," he began, his voice dropping to an even lower register, "what is it about this night, about this moment, that you feel so intensely?" It wasn't a simple question. It was an invitation to delve into the depths of her soul, to articulate the inchoate yearnings that had been stirring within her. She took a breath, gathering her thoughts, her eyes still locked with his. It's the unexpectedness," she began, choosing her words carefully. "The way you appeared, the way you were raying, like a dream made real but more vivid, more substantial than any dream." She paused, searching for the right words. "And it's the feeling that I've been waiting for something, for someone, without even realizing it. And now you're here, and everything feels both utterly new and profoundly familiar." He listened, his head tilted slightly, his gaze unwavering, absorbing every word, every nuance. When she finished, he reached out, his fingers lightly tracing the delicate curve of her wrist, sending another jolt of sensation through her. "Familiarity," he murmured, his thumb brushing over her pulse point, "is a curious thing. Sometimes it speaks of a shared past, a forgotten memory. Other times it speaks of a destined future, a recognition of what is meant to be." His touch was light, yet it held an undeniable power, a promise of more. Her skin tingled where he touched her, a delicious warmth spreading outwards. She felt utterly exposed, yet completely safe, paradoxically vulnerable and empowered. "What do you feel?" she asked, her voice a little shaky, mirroring the tremor in her hand beneath his. He leaned closer, his eyes darkening, his gaze delving into hers as if seeking answers within her very soul. "I feel a profound connection, a resonance, as if the world has suddenly shifted into perfect alignment, and every step, every breath, every choice has led me to this very moment, to you." His thumb continued slow, hypnotic caress, his touch growing fractionally firmer. "I feel a hunger not just for your presence, but for your thoughts, your laughter, your fears, your dreams, for the very essence of who you are." His proximity was intoxicating. She could smell the faint, clean scent of his skin, the rich aroma of his cologne, now mingled with the cedar from the fire. Her breath hitched in her throat. The air between them was thick with unspoken desires, a palpable tension that hummed with electric energy. "And," he continued, his voice dropping to an almost inaudible whisper, "I feel an overwhelming desire to protect that connection, to cherish it, to explore every facet of it, to uncover every texture, every nuance, every hidden depth." He lifted his hand from her wrist, but only to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing gently along her jawline. His touch was exquisitely tender, yet firm enough to convey the depth of his conviction. Her skin burned where he touched her, a delightful inferno that spread through her veins. Her eyes fluttered closed for a moment, savoring the sensation, the sheer intimacy of it. When she opened them, his face was even closer, his eyes pools of dark intensity. She could see the minuscule flecks of gold in their depths, like distant stars. Her gaze drifted to his lips, full and perfectly sculpted, a silent invitation. The air crackled between them, thick with anticipation. "Julian?" he said softly, his voice a low rumble, breaking the spell of silent yearning, finally giving a name to the enigma. "My name is Julian." "Elara," she whispered, the sound feeling foreign, yet perfect on her tongue as she offered it to him. "Elara," he repeated, savoring the name, letting it roll off his tongue like a precious jewel. A beautiful name for a beautiful woman. His thumb stroked her cheek once more. Then he slowly, deliberately began to lean in. Her heart hammered, a wild bird trapped in her chest. Every cell in her body was alive, tingling, yearning. Her lips parted slightly. An unconscious invitation. She could feel the warmth of his breath on her skin, smell the intoxicating scent of him, see the flicker of desire in his eyes, mirroring her own. He paused, a breath away, his eyes searching hers, asking for permission, offering her a chance to retreat. But retreat was the furthest thing from her mind. She wanted this, needed this, with an intensity that bordered on desperation. She leaned in fractionally, silently giving him her answer. His lips met hers, not with a sudden rush, but with a deliberate slowness, a feather-light touch that was both a question and a promise. It was soft, hesitant at first, a gentle exploration, as if testing the waters. Her own lips were soft and yielding beneath his, responding instinctively. Then, as if a dam had broken, the kiss deepened. His hand moved from her cheek to cup the back of her head, his fingers tangling gently in her hair, drawing her closer. Her free hand rose, finding purchase on his chest, feeling the solid warmth of him through the silk of his shirt. Her fingers curled into the fabric, clutching him, anchoring herself to this intoxicating reality. The kiss was everything she had imagined and more. It was soft and tender, yet laced with an undeniable passion, a deep, simmering fire. His lips moved expertly against hers, coaxing, demanding, promising. She felt a sigh escape her, a sound of pure contentment and longing. She tasted him. A subtle hint of rich coffee, something clean and masculine, and the intoxicating flavor of pure desire. He deepened the kiss further, his tongue lightly tracing the seam of her lips, asking for entrance. She granted it willingly, eagerly, parting her lips, inviting him in. His tongue met hers, a gentle dance at first, then more confident, more urgent. It was a sensual exploration, a silent conversation of longing and pleasure. Her entire body hummed with sensation. Her blood felt like liquid fire in her veins. She felt herself melting into him, into the moment, lost in the exquisite embrace. All thought fled, replaced by pure feeling, pure sensation. The world narrowed to the feel of his lips, the taste of him, the soft rasp of his stubble against her skin, the gentle pressure of his fingers in her hair. When he finally, reluctantly broke the kiss, it was only by a fraction of an inch. Their foreheads rested together, their breaths mingling, ragged and sweet. His eyes, dark and luminous, gazed into hers, filled with an emotion so profound it stole her breath. "Ilara," he murmured again, her name a prayer on his lips. "You are exquisite." She could only manage a choked sound, her voice lost somewhere in the depths of her desire. She felt utterly undone, yet beautifully whole. His thumb stroked her cheek once more, a tender gesture that sent shivers through her. He pulled back slightly, but kept her close, his arm now resting lightly around her waist, his hand warm against the silk of her robe. He gestured towards a small, elegant table next to the sofa. "I also took the liberty of pouring us something to drink, to chase away the last vestiges of the world outside." On the table, 2 crystal glasses gleamed, filled with an amber liquid that caught the firelight. A rich, aged brandy, she suspected, by its deep color and the subtle warm aroma that now permeated the air. He released her, only to pour a second, more generous measure into each glass, then handed one to her. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass, his eyes never leaving hers. "And to the unfolding of true textures." "To true textures," she echoed, her voice still a little breathless, her hand trembling slightly as she accepted the glass. The warmth of the brandy was a welcome sensation, a delicious contrast to the thrilling chill that had settled in her bones. She took a sip, the liquid fire warming her from the inside out, a perfect complement to the warmth he had ignited. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the only sounds the crackle of the fire and the soft clink of their glasses. The air was still thick with the aftermath of their kiss, the unspoken promises hanging tantalizingly between them. "Tell me about yourself, Julian," she ventured, needing to ground herself, to learn more about this magnetic man who had so effortlessly captivated her. "Where are you from? What brought you here tonight?" He took a slow sip of his brandy, his gaze fixed on the dancing flames. "A long story, Ilara. One for another time perhaps, when the night is even deeper and the world outside has truly faded." He turned his attention back to her, a knowing glint in his eyes. "But I can tell you this, I am a man who appreciates beauty in all its forms. In art, in music, in the quiet grace of a perfectly crafted moment. And I'm a man who, when he finds something truly exquisite, does not let it slip away. His words were a soft declaration, a possessive whisper that thrilled her. He wasn't just talking about her physical beauty, she realized. He was talking about the essence of her, the spark he had seen, the connection they shared. "And you, Ilara?" he prompted gently. "What delights you? What stirs your soul?" She hesitated, then smiled. "The same, perhaps. Beauty in unexpected places, the quiet thrill of discovery." And she met his gaze, a playful challenge in her eyes, the delicious tension of the unknown. He chuckled, a low, rich sound that vibrated through her. The unknown, yes, a powerful allure. But sometimes, Ilara, the most profound beauty lies in the known, in the familiar, but seen through a new lens. Like velvet, perhaps, so familiar, yet capable of revealing new depths of sensation with every touch. He reached out again, his fingers brushing against the sleeve of her silk robe, tracing the smooth, cool fabric. "Silk," he murmured, his eyes holding hers. Such a contrast, smooth, fluid, yielding, yet both so utterly sensual. His gaze dropped to her collarbone, visible where the robe parted slightly, then back to her eyes. "You wear it well. It suits the quiet strength beneath." His words, his touch, his gaze, everything about him was designed to unravel her slowly, deliciously. She felt a blush creep up her neck. She was aware of every inch of her body, every curve, every breath. "Julian," she began, her voice barely a whisper. "This is exhilarating, but also overwhelming." He smiled, a gentle, understanding smile. He didn't deny it, didn't dismiss her feelings. "I understand. This intensity is not for the faint of heart. But I believe you are not faint of heart, Ilara. I believe you are a woman who understands depth, who craves genuine connection, who is not afraid to explore the contours of her own desires." He set his glass down on the table, then turned more fully towards her, his arm still resting along the back of the sofa, his hand now hovering near her shoulder. "Tell me, Ilara," he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "What are your deepest desires, as the night deepens and the world outside recedes?" His question was a direct challenge, an invitation to a dangerous and thrilling game. Her heart pounded in response. She looked into his eyes, seeing not judgment, but a profound curiosity, an open invitation to share her deepest self. She took a slow, steadying breath, the scent of brandy and cedar and Julian filling her senses. "I desire to feel truly seen," she confessed, the words a fragile offering. "To be understood. To be touched, not just physically but in a way that awakens everything within me." She met his intense gaze. "To lose myself, perhaps, and to find something extraordinary in the losing." A slow, profoundly sensual smile spread across his lips. To be seen, to be understood, to be awakened, these are not small desires, Ilara. They are the yearnings of a profound soul. He leaned in closer, his voice a warm caress against her ear, sending shivers down her spine. "And I believe I can show you how extraordinary that losing can be, how utterly transformative." His hand, which had been resting on the back of the sofa, moved, slowly, deliberately, to her shoulder, then down her arm, his fingers tracing a path along the silk of her robe, a feather-light touch that seemed to ignite every nerve ending beneath. He paused at her elbow, his thumb gently caressing the soft skin there, sending a wave of delicious warmth through her. "The night is still young," he murmured, his gaze dropping to her lips, then back to her eyes dark with desire. "And we have so many textures left to explore. The texture of shared silence, the texture of whispered secrets, the texture of a lingering touch, the texture of breath against skin." His voice trailed off, leaving the unspoken hanging in the air, potent and heavy. His hand continued its slow, mesmerizing journey, moving down her forearm, his fingers brushing against her inner wrist, where her pulse fluttered frantically beneath his touch. He took her hand in his thumb gently tracing the delicate lines of her palm, a slow, intimate exploration. "Do you trust me, Elara?" he asked, his voice soft, almost a plea, yet imbued with an unwavering confidence. "To guide you through these unfolding textures, to show you depths you might not have known existed." Her gaze locked with his, and in those dark, fathomless eyes, she saw a reflection of her own burgeoning desire, her own desperate longing. She saw the promise of an adventure, a journey into the heart of intimacy. And she knew, with an absolute certainty that transcended logic, that she did. "Yes," she whispered. The single word, a sacred vow, a surrender and a daring invitation all at once. "I trust you, Julian." His smile deepened, a private, triumphant smile that sent a thrill through her. He gently squeezed her hand, then slowly, deliberately brought her fingers to his lips. He kissed the back of her hand, his lips warm and soft against her skin. A tender, reverent gesture that spoke volumes. Then he turned her hand over, and with a soft, lingering touch, he kissed the sensitive skin of her palm, sending a jolt of pure pleasure straight to her core. Her breath hitched. She felt herself leaning into him, her body drawn by an invisible, irresistible force. The air thickened, charged with the energy of their shared anticipation. The fire crackled, casting their silhouettes in dancing shadows, as if the room itself held its breath, waiting for what would unfold. He released her hand, but only to place his own, firm and warm, on her waist, drawing her gently closer until their hips almost touched. The silk of her robe whispered against his trousers, a soft, sensual sound. His other hand returned to her cheek, his thumb once again caressing her jawline, a familiar comfort, a thrilling promise. "Then let us begin, Elara," he murmured, his voice a low, seductive hum, his eyes burning into hers. "Let us truly taste the night." His gaze dropped to her lips, then to the delicate curve of her neck, then back to her eyes, a silent question, a powerful invitation. The romantic tension was a palpable thing, a shimmering veil between them, thick with longing and unspoken desires. She felt herself tremble, a delicious tremor that started deep within her and spread outwards, making every inch of her skin exquisitely sensitive. The room was bathed in firelight and shadow, a sanctuary woven from warmth and desire. The soft scent of burning cedar, the richness of the brandy, the subtle, intoxicating musk of Julian's skin. It all combined into a heady elixir that promised profound indulgence. She closed her eyes for a moment, savoring the feeling of his proximity, the warmth of his hand on her waist, the gentle caress of his thumb on her cheek. When she opened them, his face was so close, his dark eyes like fathomless pools, reflecting the firelight and the burning intensity of his own longing. He was a mystery, an enigma, yet in this moment he felt like the most familiar, most inevitable presence in her life. The man who was Egu Velvetai. He leaned in further, his lips just a breath away from hers. "Tell me, Elara," he whispered, his voice a silken thread. "What is the first texture you wish to explore?" Her breath caught. The question was a challenge, an invitation to name her desire, to articulate the burning need that pulsed through her veins. She looked into his eyes, her own filled with a burgeoning passion, a fierce longing. "Your lips," she breathed, her voice barely audible, raw with yearning. "The texture of your kiss again, but deeper this time, more consuming." A slow, profound smile curved his lips, a look of pure triumph and exquisite pleasure. "As you wish, Elara," he murmured, his eyes darkening with an answering hunger. "As you wish." And then his lips descended, not gently this time, but with a fierce, intoxicating passion that claimed hers entirely. It was a kiss that devoured, that consumed, that promised oblivion and ecstasy. Her hands found their way to his hair, pulling him closer, tangling in the soft strands, deepening the kiss, matching his intensity. The fire roared in the hearth, mirroring the fire that now raged within her. The night, truly, had just begun to unfold its magnificent, intoxicating textures. and she was ready to explore every single one of them, with him. The world outside had indeed faded, leaving only the exquisite reality of Julian, his kiss, and the boundless potential of the night. His lips moved from hers, trailing a devastating path down her jawline, across the delicate curve of her throat, sending shivers through her that had nothing to do with the chill of the evening, and everything to do with the inferno he ignited within her. She arched her neck, granting him further access, a soft moan escaping her as his touch became a whisper of exquisite promise. His hands, no longer content to merely tangle in her hair, slid down her back, pressing her closer, molding her body against his, letting her feel the hard planes of his chest, the tautness of his stomach, the undeniable evidence of his desire mirroring her own. The world truly was just Julian. His scent, a sophisticated blend of cedar, a hint of something musky and utterly masculine, and now the intoxicating fragrance of their shared passion, filled her senses, drowning out all else. Her fingers, still entwined in his hair, tightened, then loosened, tracing the strong line of his neck, the broad expanse of his shoulders beneath the fine wool of his sweater. She felt the tremor in his muscles, a silent language of control barely contained, and it thrilled her. He lifted his head, his breath warm against her skin, his eyes dark and fathomable pools, searching hers. A silent question hung between them, a question that needed no words, only a gaze that spoke volumes of longing, of unspoken dreams, of a future just beginning to unfurl. She saw her own yearning reflected there, raw and vulnerable, yet utterly resolute. She nodded, a small, almost imperceptible movement, but it was enough. It was everything. A slow, knowing smile curved his lips, a smile that promised both tenderness and wild abandon. He kissed her again, this time a softer, deeper kiss, a kiss of possession and devotion, a promise of what was to come. It was a kiss that tasted of wine and desire, a heady cocktail that went straight to her soul. His hands moved, with a practiced grace that was both tantalizing and disarming. One hand found the small of her back, the other traced the line of her hip, then drifted upwards, settling on the curve of her breast, his thumb brushing lightly over the fabric of her dress. A gasp caught in her throat, a fragile sound of pure sensation. Her skin hummed beneath his touch, awakening nerves she hadn't known existed. The delicate lace of her slip, the silken overlay of her dress, suddenly felt like an unbearable barrier. "You are exquisite," he murmured, his voice a low rumble against her ear, sending another wave of shivers through her. "Every part of you." He moved back slightly, enough to look at her, his eyes devouring her with an intensity that made her blush, a warmth spreading from her chest to her cheek. He reached for the zipper of her dress, his fingers brushing against her skin as he slowly, deliberately drew it down. The cool air of the room, though warmed by the fire, kissed her exposed skin, a stark contrast to the heat that radiated from Julian's body, from his touch. The dress slid from her shoulders, pooling around her feet in a silken cascade. She stepped out of it, feeling suddenly lighter, freer, standing before him in only her lace slip and stockings. The firelight danced across her skin, painting her in hues of amber and rose. She felt vulnerable, yet empowered, meeting his gaze with a defiant softness. He reached out, his fingers tracing the delicate lace of her slip, following the curve of her collarbone, down to the swell of her breast. "Beautiful," he whispered again, his voice thick with emotion. He didn't rush, savoring each moment, each touch, as if memorizing her contours. He knelt before her, his hands gently finding the top of her stockings, his touch a feather-light exploration. Slowly, painstakingly, he rolled them down her legs, his gaze never leaving hers, turning the act into a ritual of intimate devotion. Each garment shed was a layer of inhibition peeled away, revealing not just her skin, but her deepest desires. When she stood before him in only her slip, a sheer wisp of lace and silk, he rose, his eyes still locked on hers. He unbuttoned his own shirt, his movements slow and deliberate, mirroring the tantalizing pace of their unfolding night. The sight of his chest, broad and muscular, dusted with dark hair, sent a fresh wave of heat through her. He shrugged out of the shirt, letting it fall to the floor, then reached for her, pulling her gently against him. The feeling of his bare skin against the delicate lace of her slip was an exquisite torment. The rough texture of his chest hair against the silk, the warmth of his skin seeping through the fabric, the strong beat of his heart against her own. She lifted her hands, tracing the muscles of his arms, feeling a power in them, then slipped them around his waist, reveling in the solid strength of his form. He kissed her again, a deeper, more urgent kiss this time, his lips demanding, his tongue exploring, tasting. She met his passion with her own, her body molding to his, her hips swaying subtly against his, a silent invitation. He groaned, a deep, guttural sound that vibrated through her, and she felt a thrill course through her veins. With a gentle sigh, he lifted her into his arms, surprising her with his strength. She wrapped her legs around his waist instinctively, her arms tightening around his neck, burying her face in the crook of his shoulder. He carried her from the hearth, where the fire continued its dance, towards the bedroom. A sanctuary bathed in the soft glow of bedside lamps and the scent of lavender and anticipation. He laid her down gently on the plush mattress, the cool linen a welcome contrast to the heat that now enveloped her. He hovered above her for a moment, his eyes still searching hers, asking, promising. She reached up, her fingers threading through his hair, pulling him down for another kiss, a silent affirmation of her readiness, her hunger. His lips claimed hers, fierce and tender, all at once, as his hands found the hem of her slip, slowly, deliberately drawing it up her body. The lace brushed against her skin, a final caress before it was discarded, leaving her utterly exposed, vulnerable and thrillingly alive beneath his gaze. She watched him, her breath catching in her throat, as he shed the rest of his clothes, each movement revealing more of the sculpted beauty of his body. He was magnificent, a god carved from desire and strength, and he was hers for this night, and perhaps for always. He came to her, a shadow against the soft light, his body warm and firm as he stretched out beside her, then gently above her. The contact of their bare skin was electric, a jolt that went straight to her core. He propped himself on his elbows, gazing down at her, his eyes filled with a tenderness that brought tears to her own. "You are breathtaking," he whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion. He leaned down, kissing her forehead, her eyelids, the tip of her nose, each touch a reverence. His lips finally settled on hers, a soft, lingering kiss that deepened slowly, exquisitely. His hand drifted down her body, a slow, sensual journey from her shoulder to her hip, then inward, exploring the soft curve of her waist, the delicate indentation of her navel. Her breath hitched as his fingers brushed across her most sensitive skin, a spark igniting a flame that quickly spread through her. She arched into his touch, her hips rising instinctively, seeking more. He groaned, a sound of pure desire, and responded to her unspoken plea. His touch became more confident, more demanding, exploring the depths of her readiness. Her fingers tangled in his hair again, pulling him closer, her body trembling with a mixture of anticipation and pure, unadulterated pleasure. The world outside the bedroom, outside their embrace, ceased to exist. There was only the warmth of his skin against hers, the scent of his body, the soft sighs that escaped her lips, the low moans that rumbled from his throat. Their breathing grew ragged, synchronized, a primal rhythm building between them. Each touch, each kiss, each brush of skin against skin was a stroke in a masterpiece of passion, building towards an inevitable glorious climax. He moved slowly, deliberately, teasingly, until she was practically begging for him, her body a symphony of yearning. When he finally entered her, it was with a sigh of profound relief from them both, a sensation that was both familiar and utterly new, a perfect fit that felt like coming home. She gasped, her nails digging gently into his shoulders as he filled her, slowly, deeply, completely. The rhythm began, tentative at first, then growing in intensity, in urgency. He moved within her, a powerful, unwavering force, each thrust a deeper plunge into ecstasy. She met him stroke for stroke, her hips rising to meet his, her legs wrapping tighter around his waist, pulling him closer, deeper still. The bed creaked softly in protest, the only sound apart from their ragged breaths, their shared moans, the thumping of their heart. Her senses were overwhelmed. The scent of their mingled bodies, the sight of his face above hers, contorted in a mask of pleasure, the feel of his skin slick with sweat against hers, the taste of his mouth as he dipped his head to kiss her again. Fiercely, desperately. The fire that had roared in the hearth now raged within her, consuming her, purifying her, reducing her to pure sensation. The tension coiled tighter and tighter, a spring wound to its absolute limit. She felt it building, a tremor starting deep within her, spreading outwards, through every nerve ending, every muscle. She cried out his name, a raw, primal sound, as the wave broke over her, washing away all thought, all control, leaving only pure, unadulterated sensation. Her body convulsed around him, clinging to him as if he were her only anchor in a storm of pleasure. Julian groaned, a deep, guttural roar, and followed her over the precipice, pouring himself into her, his body rigid, then collapsing against her, spent and satisfied. They lay together, tangled limbs, bodies slick with sweat, hearts pounding in unison, the echoes of their shared climax reverberating through the silent room. He shifted, rolling onto his side, pulling her close against him, tucking her head onto his shoulder. She could feel the steady beat of his heart beneath her ear, the warmth of his breath against her hair. Her own body still thrummed with the aftershocks of pleasure, a sweet, lingering ache that promised more. "My beautiful darling," he whispered, his voice raspy as he pressed a kiss to her temple. "You are everything I never knew I was missing." She smiled, a soft, contented smile against his skin. She didn't need to answer with words. Her body, relaxed and fulfilled in his embrace, spoke volumes. She felt utterly cherished, utterly seen, utterly loved. The quiet intimacy of the afterglow was almost as profound as the passion itself. They lay like that for a long time, simply breathing, simply being, lost in the quiet wonder of their connection. Eventually, Julian stirred, pulling the thick duvet up and over them, cocooning them in warmth. He kissed the top of her head, then tightened his arm around her, pulling her even closer, until there was no space left between them. Sleep, heavy and sweet, began to claim her, a peaceful surrender after such exhilarating intensity. She drifted off to the sound of his steady breathing, the feel of his strong arm around her, the lingering scent of their shared passion. She awoke slowly, gently, to the soft caress of morning light filtering through the heavy curtains. The world was not entirely silent, birds chirped a cheerful symphony outside, and the faint scent of coffee drifted tantalizingly from somewhere nearby. But the most immediate sensation was the warmth beside her, the solid weight of an arm draped across her waist, the gentle rhythm of breath against her neck. "Julian." A smile bloomed on her face before she even opened her eyes. She shifted slightly, turning to face him. He was still asleep, his dark hair tousled against the pillow, his long lashes resting on his cheek. In the soft morning light, he looked younger, more vulnerable, yet still utterly captivating. She traced the line of his jaw with a fingertip, marveling at the strength and tenderness etched into his features. His eyes fluttered open, dark pools slowly focusing on her. A slow smile spread across his face, mirroring her own. "Good morning," he murmured, his voice husky with sleep and affection. "Good morning," she replied, her voice equally soft, a little breathless. She felt a blush creep up her neck, remembering the exquisite passion of the night, the way they had explored each other, body and soul. There was no awkwardness, no regret, only a profound sense of rightness. He reached out, his hand cupping her cheek, his thumbs stroking gently. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than I've slept in years," she confessed, her eyes shining. It was magical. He leaned in, his lips brushing hers in a tender, lingering kiss. It was, he agreed, his eyes full of warmth and meaning. More than magical, it was real, and it was exactly what I've been waiting for. Her heart swelled in her chest. She had waited too, though she hadn't known what she was waiting for until now. Until Julian. They lay there for a long time, simply gazing at each other, rediscovering the contours of each other's faces in the soft light of dawn. The world outside could wait. This bubble of intimacy, of unspoken understanding, was all that mattered. Eventually, the lure of the day and the enticing scent of coffee became too strong to ignore. Julian stretched, his muscles rippling, and she found herself admiring the elegant lines of his body once more. He rose from the bed, moving with an easy grace, and retrieved his dressing gown, slipping it on before turning back to her. "Coffee?" he offered, his eyes twinkling. "And perhaps some breakfast. I can make a mean omelette if you're willing to take the risk." She laughed, a light, joyful sound. "I'm willing to risk anything with you, Julian." He smiled, a genuine heartwarming smile that reached his eyes. "Good," he said, and the single word was laden with unspoken promises. She found a silk robe in the ensuite bathroom, a luxurious garment that felt like a whisper against her skin. When she emerged, Julian was already in the kitchen, a spacious, sun-drenched room with an island counter. He moved with competence, pouring coffee into 2 delicate porcelain cups, the rich aroma filling the air. "Sugar? Milk?" he asked, turning to her. "Just a splash of milk, please," she replied, walking over to him. He handed her a cup, their fingers brushing, sending a jolt of warmth through her. They sat at the island, sipping their coffee, the silence comfortable, punctuated only by the clinking of porcelain and the sounds of Julian preparing breakfast. He worked with a quiet efficiency, cracking eggs, chopping herbs, the sizzle of butter in the pan creating a soothing symphony. "I imagine this isn't how most of your mornings begin," she ventured, a teasing note in her voice. He chuckled, stirring the eggs. "No, not quite. Usually it's a frantic rush, a quick espresso and off to the studio." "This," he gestured around the peaceful kitchen, "this is a welcome change. A beautiful one." He met her gaze, his eyes softening. "Thank you for that." "Thanking you," she replied softly. "For everything." He plated the omelettes, golden and fluffy, garnished with fresh chives, alongside slices of toasted sourdough, and a bowl of fresh berries. The meal was simple, yet elegant, reflecting the man himself. They ate in a comfortable silence, savoring the delicious food and the quiet intimacy of the moment. Each bite felt imbued with the lingering magic of the night. "So," Julian began, once their plates were clean, his voice thoughtful, "what happens now?" Her heart fluttered. This was it. The conversation that would define the morning, and perhaps, their future. She met his gaze, her own filled with a mixture of hope and trepidation. "I don't know," she admitted honestly. "What do you want to happen, Julian?" He reached across the counter, taking her hand in his thumb stroking the back of her knuckles. His touch was reassuring, grounding. "I want more," he said, his voice deep and sincere. "I want to wake up next to you again. I want to make you breakfast again. I want to see that smile on your face every morning. I want to know you, truly know you, every facet of you, in and out of the bedroom." A tear pricked at the corner of her eye. His words were everything she had longed to hear, words that echoed the deepest desires of her own heart. "Julian," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I want that too, more than you know." He squeezed her hand. "I think I do know. I felt it last night. This wasn't just a night. This was a beginning, wasn't it?" She nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. "Yes," she managed, her voice barely audible. "It felt like coming alive, like finding a part of myself I didn't even know was lost." He leaned forward, his eyes shining with a profound tenderness. "You've awakened something in me too, Something I thought was dormant, perhaps even gone for good. You've brought light back into corners of my life I'd forgotten about." He paused, then continued, his gaze unwavering. "I don't want to rush anything, but I don't want to let you go either. I want to build something real with you, something lasting." She swallowed, her own voice gaining strength. "I want that, Julian. More than anything. I want to see where this takes us. I want to explore every magnificent, intoxicating texture of life with you." She echoed her own thoughts from the night before, now spoken aloud, a promise solidifying in the bright morning light. He smiled, a slow, breathtaking smile that reached his eyes, crinkling the corners. "Then that's what we'll do," he said, his voice firm with resolve. He stood, pulling her gently to her feet, drawing her into his arms. She rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady, comforting beat of his heart. The world outside, with its demands and distractions, felt miles away, utterly irrelevant. Here, in Julian's arms, in the quiet warmth of his home, she felt a peace, a joy, and a sense of belonging she hadn't known was possible. He kissed the top of her head, then tilted her chin up, his gaze loving and deep. "This is just the beginning," he murmured, his lips brushing hers. "Our story has just begun to unfold its magnificent, intoxicating textures, and I'm ready to explore every single one of them with you." And in his embrace, with the morning sun painting their figures in gold, she knew with an absolute certainty that she was ready too. The fire in the hearth might have dwindled to embers, but the fire within them, kindled by a single look, ignited by a stolen kiss, and fanned into an inferno of shared passion, would burn brightly, warming their lives for all the days to come. Their night of boundless potential had indeed given way to a morning of boundless promise.